It's one of the longest day I ever saw. By evening, he was not talking at all, and he is not moving his body even an inch. And that night, as I sat next to him, I knew he will not wake up to see light of the day. I had not slept for like 22 hours. And now deep into the night at 2 a.m., as I stared at him, I told myself, even if I stay awake, I cannot keep him alive. It is only God who could keep him alive. Good night, sweet dreams. I love you. Now, fast forward, we land in India. The four of us, the nuclear family. The treatment plan for bone marrow transplant, it has basically 4 phases. The first phase, there are tests that again must be done upon arriving. You had done some tests in your country, yes. By the moment you land in whichever place you're going to do transplant, there are more extensive tests that will be done. So we land in India, and the first week we are doing tests. The plan is after first week of test, then the second week we'll get admission to do the first chemotherapy. This is preparing the body for bone marrow transplant. So you do chemotherapy for like around 5 days, and then we'll have a rest for some few days, a week or 5 to 7 days, and then you will have a second admission for chemotherapy again, still preparing the body. You get discharged, and then you stay for some few days as they monitor the body, and then you now have a third admission. In the third admission, the plan is to have again chemotherapy, and then radiotherapy, and then transplant. After transplant, the care. This last phase of admission of transplant, you stay in hospital for 28 days. When you're in hospital for 28 days, you're confined in a room. A room without windows, only a glass wall for you to see outside, and a room of very high hygiene. Actually, this one is for the patient and the caregiver. The patient cannot stay alone in the room, in the ward ideally, because they are vulnerable. I will be able to give you bits of the process. But the treatment plan looks like first week tests, second week chemotherapy, then a rest, then almost towards the end of the month, after like a month or so, there'll be another admission for chemotherapy, then a rest at home, then another admission now for the transplant phase, and then you get discharged and wait for like 100 days after transplant before you can go. So basically that is the plan. But now, what happened? We get admitted. After the first test, we get admitted. And so I go with him. Through that process, I stayed with him in hospital. Out of the 6 months stay, a cumulative of 5 months, I was with him in hospital. There are broken days, but cumulative 5 months, I was with him in hostel. And around 1 month, broken days, I was with him in the house. And so the first admission we go and we start the chemotherapy process in preparation of the body for the bone marrow transplant. And so we do that bit and we go home, we get discharged. Now, when we get discharged, we're told you'll come back after 7 days for the next admission, for the next chemo. But what happens in between, they do actually a lot of tests. In as much as you're going home, you're breaking, but the moment they start the chemotherapy, a lot of tests are done to monitor the body and to see the body reactions as well. Ideally, the chemotherapy, at the end of it, through that whole journey, chemotherapy would be to kill the bad cells, and radiotherapy at the end of it, before transplant, will kill both good and bad cells. In all this process, the immunity will come down, and purposely it's done, the immunity is purposely brought down at 0. So before transplant, the immunity is at 0. Where you do radiotherapy today to kill every cell, and then tomorrow the transplant is done. The reason why the immunity must be brought to 0, so that when the donated bone marrow will be introduced to the body has nothing or has no fighters to fight against the foreign material in the body. So the donated bone marrow will find a clean slate and start growing on the recipient. So if the chemotherapy and radiotherapy do not go well and some cells remain, they will definitely fight the donated bone marrow. And the body may reject that donated bone marrow. So throughout this medical process, it's also by God's grace, because it's not guaranteed that all the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy will successfully kill all the required cells, bring the immunity to 0, and have the body not reject. Because one of the really some of the adverse effects of bone marrow transplant, reason why the doctors also recommended that not every sickle cell patient is a patient for bone marrow transplant. Also, the challenges that come with it, with the process. It's a very critical process. There can be rejection. The patient's body can reject the donated bone marrow. There can be complications like some viruses emanating or coming up on the body. Some viruses that they're just within every other person's body, but once the immunity is brought down, they come up. They can fight the donated bone marrow or engraftment. Engraftment is that process of the new bone marrow growing into those cells growing in the patient's cells. So they may fight. Engraftment may be fought by these viruses as well. Those are just complications that may come. There are other viruses that would come. Those are just complications. So it has complications. And good enough that the doctors have a plan to manage these complications. They expect them. And before you go, they will actually tell you that possibilities of this and this and this are this and this and this and this. So you only commit yourself in the hands of God. For the first time, I had a virus called CMV virus. There's a virus called BK virus. So these are viruses that they will sprout the moment the immunity is down, and they can fight the process and even reverse the process. and the body refuses completely to have that new bone marrow growing in it. Or you find the cells of the patient fighting those foreign materials which are the donated bone marrow. So yes, the process is not like a clear catch and a one-stop solution that it works and it works and it works. It is not like I take a mat and I know it will drop me in town. Here it's like you getting into a mat, you want to go to town, but the driver will tell you there's a very bad riot in between here. The road is not very safe. But you have to consent that either way I still want to go. That's why I say for bone marrow transplant, it should be like a last resort solution. The patient must be in a position where they are really suffering. Either way, if the bone marrow transplant is not done, tomorrow is not known. Like you can't predict tomorrow. And that's why for someone who has sickle cell and they have crisis twice in a year, the doctor would not recommend you do a bone marrow transplant. You better live with it because you can live. Bone marrow transplant is a last resort to a situation where the patient is suffering because the process in itself, it's a very critical process. We have done the test in the first week. We find everything okay. Then we now go, and the tests are done between the donor and the recipient, and they give a clean bill. And the next phase, we get admitted to do chemotherapy, the first phase of chemotherapy. And so he goes through the chemotherapy. We finish the phase and then we get discharged. So we go back home. And the first phase of chemotherapy, they really impact the body. Yes, they really impact the body. So he becomes already weak, and he's also minor. This a young man now starting that treatment plan. So after the time we are discharged, we are told we'll come back after 7 days. But there are key things to look at about his care. Now, any slightest rise in temperature, that is an emergency, you just to be attended to. Because now the chemotherapy treatment, immunity is being brought down. So anything can attack the body. And we have to be very careful with any form of infection now that are prone to come. So any rise in temperature, that is a red flag. Any behavior on vomiting or any unusual behavior cannot be taken lightly. It's being considered critical. We are discharged and we go home, and we are told what to check for. That really means red flags, and that have to be taken seriously. And so on the third night, around 1 a.m., fever, his first fever, and we're told fever is critical because it means infection, and infection cannot be taken lightly. And so you start panicking. When the doctor tells you that this and this are bad signs, and now these bad signs manifests before you, and quickly by 4 a.m. we are out, we're going to hospital for admission. Fever is just an admission. They have to check what is causing the fever. And so tests are done and we find CMV virus is up. And he gets treated for this for almost 7 days. And this is out of the treatment plan. And what that means, already eating into the finances and already extending the treatment plan days. And once we finish on this second admission, again we get discharged, we come back home. He's now on steroids. And as he's on steroids, the appetite increases. And one of the measures or the care being given is fresh food. Freshly cooked food. Strictly freshly cooked food. Why? With the chemotherapy, immunity is coming down. And with the food probably that has stayed beyond 2 hours, you don't know which microorganisms are forming on the food. He consumes that and it is a problem in the body. And you cannot take some type of fruit, only peeled fruits, nothing cut by the knife, no raw vegetables. You don't know what will these will bring to the body, and it can be a whole disaster. And so, at times, now with the steroids, the appetite is gone up. The fresh food must be taken within the hour of being cooked. If it goes 2 to 3 hours, you can't cook. Anything taken into the fridge must and should never be eaten. And so you at times cook at 7 p.m. and at 11 he's hungry. 11 p.m. So he tells you, I'm hungry. So whatever you cooked and ate at 7 p.m., he cannot eat. You have to cook again. And then at 4 a.m., Daddy, I'm hungry. And so you wake up and cook. And when he says he's hungry, and you see with the steroids now, his blood pressure also goes up. And so he gets agitated. It's not him, but the effect of the medication now, which he is under. So you delay, he'll tap you and say, food, I'm hungry. So you have to go and cook. And so yes, we finish that phase. And as we go into the second, before actually we go, okay, ideally we now go after now the discharge of CMV complication. When we come back home, then we go back for the second phase of chemotherapy. At this time, he's becoming more vulnerable. Now, we get admitted for the second phase. We do the chemotherapy and we are told, you'll now take, we finish that session and we go home. We're told you'll now wait for 21 days and then come back for the third phase of treatment. But within these 21 days, we do weekly tests. So when we go home, instead of waiting for 21 days to come back for the next one, for the next admission, in between though with a planned test, we only take 3 days. And he gets into crisis again. So the first day he's in crisis, we are trying to manage as we've been managing, because at the back of everything, admission means more finances. And so we wait for the first day, he's on crisis, we try to manage at home, and on the second day, he's still crying, and we ask ourselves, why are we subjecting him to this torture? We are in a hospital environment. Let's tell the doctor. So we tell the doctor and he says, we go for admission. And so we go for admission. and the pain does not go. And in India, they have very strict regulations on high-end painkillers. They don't just administer. Some medication which we could could be administered in Kenya to help when he was at the verge of very painful crisis, they're not easily being administered there. It takes a process, and so ideally they see him suffering, and they now have to administer this medicine, and you have to consent. And so they administer, and just before the pain completely goes, the worst happens. This crisis comes with a second stroke. And when the second stroke comes, his ability to walk is gone. His ability to talk is gone. He can't walk and he can't talk. And so we wake up this day on 11th November, and it's the darkest morning, one of the darkest mornings in my life. And I observe him, he's woken up. He could always call me daddy, daddy, but this time I see he's trying to talk, but he's not able to bring out any word. His speech is gone. I carry him, I try to put him up to stand. He's not able to walk, he's not able to stand. And so a second stroke has come, and it's devastating. Immediately I tell the doctors. The goodness with the BMT doctors at Apollo Hospital where we were, they work in a team, a very big and a great team, a team of very sharp minds. And I tell them this is not normal. And quickly they fly into action. They start to resuscitate the situation. And I feel so devastated. I don't know, I'm asking myself, what am I going to tell the mother? Because we are admitted in hospital and she's out with the young one, the donor, in the apartment. And so we used to have a lot of video calls in a day, a number of video calls, just catching up and doing that. You know, as a mother, she's in the apartment. Yes, she is not able to come and be with the son because she's taking care of the donor, whom at this time we are really taking care of so that nothing happens to him, because he's our next hope here. And so every care that can be given to him is given. They're in the apartment, but they cannot travel around to see anything around. They only maintain, they can come from the apartment to hospital and straight away back to the apartment. At that time, there is some flu out with the children, and we don't want him to interact, to be affected with anything. So there's just critical care for everyone, both the patient and the donor, being the child. It's a cold season by that time. In November already is cold season. Winter is coming in. And so the mother calls us. She wants to talk to him, but he's not able to talk. And I don't want to tell her what is happening because she would get stressed. I only want to maintain a positive face for her so that she can be strong out there with the young one, with the donor. And so I have to manage this myself here, and I'm not able to tell anyone. I feel so stricken. And so at the time I'm carrying him, I see a WhatsApp message from Children Ministry Department. A friend, his friend from the Children Ministry Department at Laser Hill is singing for him a song. Mark you, no one knows what is happening except the two of us.
Hi Jabin, my name is Esther. We really miss you in the Adventurers Club in church. I am glad that you are getting much and much better. Hopefully I can see you when Christmas has come. For now, I just want to sing your song. Does Jesus care when my heart is paid too deeply for math and song? As the burdens press and the cares distress, and the way grows weary and long.
I also reached out to a friend who is our best couple, and told them what is happening, so they're the only people who are holding our hands in prayer. I'm keeping this to myself, and I feel so devastated. I don't know what I'm going to tell the mother. I don't know. I'm in a lost world. Here you are. You came to seek yes medication, and through this process, you are seeing you are already running away from some problem, and then the problem comes again in its fullness. And so when I open this wall, we find words of encouragement from the Children Ministry Department at Laser Hill, and we find Esther sent a video. Okay, so as we are watching this video from Esther, Jabin is crying. I think he cannot understand why he can't talk. He's trying to communicate to me, but he's seeing he's not able to talk. Jabin seemed to be comprehending the whole and full message shared in this video, that does Jesus care? And so this song touches me, and I see he's crying, but he's nodding his head, like in agreement and in sync with the song. By the time this video is sent, it's exactly in the morning that this second stroke happened. But no one knows about what is happening except just ourselves, not even the mother, not any person. But it just comes so timely. I think it was just to remind me to have to keep the hope, to have some courage, because it was a message that came in a way with its terrible exactness, that does Jesus care? And the song says, oh yes, he cares. Oh yes, Jesus cares. And the doctors, they quickly fly into action. They put him on oxygen. They try to resuscitate the situation. And within 3 days, he starts to gain ability to talk. And it's at this time, now I have there's like it took 72 hours for him to start talking, basically 3 days. And within this time, he's on oxygen. The mother is calling and sees him in oxygen, which he was not on. And like she's asking, is everything okay? I'm saying, yeah, he's okay. They're just trying to manage so that the painful crisis, because we're used with oxygen any other time that he had crisis. Oxygen mask could also actually add more oxygen into the body and help relieve those sickled cell cells. So more oxygen into the body would actually mean now relief from pain. Like oxygen itself is also another therapy for managing pain. It will open up ways, and the patient will feel much better. And so I don't tell her that our son cannot talk. every time she calls, I only tell her he's asleep. Oh, he's so tired. Oh, he's like worn out. He doesn't want to talk. Until after the third day, when he starts talking, and I get so excited. And when the mother calls, I now gather some courage to give Jabin video, talk to mommy, and he says hi. And then I tell the mother that is when now I come out and tell her that is the third word, the third time he's saying hi in the last 3 days. So, like, the only thing I could do by then was to keep, pray, wait and see the Lord doing his own things. And surely he did. It took some time for him to regain ability to stand. Remember, we were dealing with the previous stroke, and so he was not able to walk well. And with the second stroke, he was now completely not able even to stand. And when things get managed, and then the doctors want to release us to go and rest for some days at home before we can come back now for the transplant phase. And I'm telling them, I don't need to go home. Let's just go into the transplant room and we start that second, that last phase. And they're telling me, no, you just need to go and relax, for purposes of ease of mind, and just relax a bit before you can start. Given that now the next phase, it's going to take long, planned admission for 28 days. And so we go home, we release to go home. We have some 4 days, and then we come back for the main part of that treatment. Now, this is the last phase. You remember, it was supposed to be the third admission according to treatment plan, but it is ideally the fifth now, because we had 2 admissions due to complications. Now, we come in and we get in for the transplant phase. And we start with the chemotherapy. We do chemotherapy around 4-5 days. And then on the 6th day, we do radiotherapy. Now, radiotherapy is meant to clear all cells. Chemo was preparing the body for transplant. Preparation in terms of killing the cells, reducing immunity, and all that. The first chemo, I remember so well. We are told that this drug is so lethal and it can damage the skin. And the only management is to wash the patient or let the patient bathe. That day, I washed him 8 times within the day, because there are chemo medicine that are being given, so you have to bathe before they start the drug. 30 minutes into the drug, you wash him, because his body would be sweating or really some excretion on the skin, which needs to be cleaned with a lot of running water. You don't do that, the skin will corrode. They'll affect the skin. And so 30 minutes into the chemo, you bathe. After the chemo, another bath. So there are like 3 chemos. You bathe before, during, and after. Then the second one, before the second one, during and after. And then like it is bathing after bathing in just critical taking care of this situation. And days come, we do radiotherapy. Now, radiotherapy is meant to kill all the cells, bring immunity to a complete zero, and then the next day would be a transplant. Now, on this day when radiotherapy is being administered on the patient, the donor would be donating the bone marrow cells. And before the donor donates, before this day, a week before, they are given. Now, this is how now the process of donation goes. After the test had been done and the doctors find everything is fine and everything is okay, now they wait 1 week to the day he's supposed to donate. They give him some medication. This medication is meant to replicate and multiply the content of bone marrow in his body until the content of the bone marrow comes to the blood. And the process of now donation, they do not access the hip bone and withdraw some content of bone marrow from the hip bone as it was done in the previous days, in the olden days. Once he is given medication which multiplies the bone marrow and brings the bone marrow content into the bloodstream, they now put some cannula, sort of a thing, from his body, and it happens like blood donation. The process like now like donating blood. So someone can be accessed through the hands. For him, since he was now 1 year 4 months, he could not. They could not put the cannula through his hands. It needs large veins, and so they accessed it from his thighs. There are large veins. Medics understand there are large veins that can be accessed from the thighs, and medication can always be given to children through the thigh if probably veins fail or something. That process takes a minimum of 3 hours. And someone has to be still in their position through that process. And how it works, after putting the line into his bloodstream, those the pipes or the cannula line, it goes to a machine. So blood comes from him like a blood donation process. It goes to a certain machine. That machine will filter bone marrow content from the blood itself and then separates the bone marrow and the rest of the blood content with the red blood cells and white cells and everything. Every other component of blood comes back to the donor. So it is some good and nice technology. The only process here now was having him be still for 3 hours. And of course, before that thick line is put through the veins or through the thighs, it goes through anesthesia, then it's put because it's either way painful, they're accessing a human being and all that. And so yes, he manages to go through this. The mother struggles to put some cartoon for him, some songs for him, until he finishes. The doctors told me that they needed, they have to do a lot of tests. Jabin needed 5,000 units of bone marrow cells. They were seeing Jacqueline to be young and probably were planning there could be a second phase of donation of those bone marrow cells. In that it's possible someone you may donate And then they check the content, they find it is not enough as to what is needed for the recipient, then you will have to go through a second phase of donation. That would be 6 hours, separate hours. Now, when his brother donated the cells, remember he needed, the patient needed 5,000 units. But when they checked the content of cells he had donated, it was 25,000. So ideally, his younger brother gave him 5 times of what he needed. When the doctors thought he would give less and they may go for a second phase of harvesting the stem cells. So through the first phase of harvesting those stem cells from the younger brother, he gave 5 times. And I was discussing with Dr. Garima, and she was laughing. What kind of a brother is that? They were so amazed. It was out of the ordinary. How? It was not usual that in his age, like he would give, it was like he was telling the brother, Bwana, you get well. I want you to get well. By all means, he wanted his brother just to get well. He decided to give the 25,000 units with all the force and might. Brother, you get well. Take everything. This is all for you. But the doctor also in their planning says, no, we cannot give all the 25. We know you mean well for your brother, but we can't administer all the 25,000 units. He only needs 5,000. These are based on calculation of his age, weight, body, and everything. So he can only be given as much as he needs. We cannot overfeed him. We cannot do an over content transplant. But to me, that showed a lot of love, brotherly love. I was trying to understand that phenomenon. What in essence is all this? First year you get the only brother who is okay and able to donate, and then after that you get a brother who is now 100% match, and the third phase now you get a brother who is giving you like 5 times of what you need. He really wants to see you out of this trouble and pain of crisis of every day and all that. Those are miracles. People still wait for the times and life of Jesus to see him change water into wine, to feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I have seen that miracle, and it has happened right before my eyes. With technology, it's good. The excess cells can be kept, preserved for a later use if there is need. And so, yes, after the donation, the next day, that was on now 22nd of November, was the transplant date. That day is so critical, and like we've been waiting for all this with a lot of anxiety. Funny enough, that all these things that were done before were preparations. Now the real bone marrow transplant event ideally would take around 15 minutes. The whole preparation and treatment plan of 6 months, the key and main thing only takes around 15 minutes. And I was expecting it would take a whole day. I would watch how it's happening and all that. And when the doctor came, Dr. Gaurav, he comes with his team, which I liked so much. Like, it's not a one-man show. He's a whole contingent of doctors, very sharp minds, very good people. And one funny thing that I really recognize and I honor, that the doctor, before he started the process of, now that is actually, it's also like transfusing, because you find he had already a thick line. The veins accessed, there's a thick line put through his arms, so they access the arms. Actually, this is what they do in preparation for all the medication, because they know the patient may not be able to take medicine orally, and the veins probably may collapse or something. So they put something called a PICC line through the arms, and it goes through up to the heart. Every medication given through the arm goes direct to near the heart. So when an X-ray was done and I saw that pipe going through the arms up to the heart, it's just some whole new thing that's like just out of this world. And so before he starts the process, he comes and they give a moment of silence and the doctors pray. They took time before that process. He prays, and after the prayer, actually brings all the doctors he's come with to an alert or attention position, and they pray, and then after prayer, then he starts pushing now the content of bone marrow that were donated. It's hanged, and it's just like the same process of blood transfusion now. The donor gave it out like blood donation. The recipient takes it like blood transfusion. And so he pulls the syringe and pushes the first, pulls again the content and push, pulls and then push, and within 15 minutes it's like done. So when this is happening, the recipient is just on the bed. He's just on the bed. He's just there. He's just looking at the doctor. He's just smiling and just looking like, what are you doing? He's just seeing people surrounding him. So it is not that like a procedure will be done, he'll be taken to the theater and some place cut, and a bone is broken and then bone marrow is inserted there. No. Because the content that was extracted from the donor, you see, once the bone marrow came into the blood content, it means it has some blood content in it now. And when it is extracted and most of the content remains bone marrow, but yet still with some blood content. So when it is infused into the system of the recipient, it goes into like the bloodstream. And then I asked one of the doctors, who was a very good friend to Jabin, Dr. Shubashis, and I asked him, now this is bone marrow content we have infused into him, but it has been taken to the bloodstream. Now what happens? Why have you taken to the bloodstream? I was expecting it to be taken to the bone marrow, to the bone. Bone marrow, as we know, is just like right in the middle of bones somewhere. Then he laughed and told me, no, once it's infused, they're intelligent, they know where to go and settle. And so critical care is heightened. At this moment, there are two key things. One, immunity is down. And two, a foreign material has been introduced to the body. And it has been introduced to the bloodstream. At this point, there can be any reaction. Within, there are some cases, historical cases of bone marrow transplant, if you to read about. Rejection may occur even immediately. Between the time the bone marrow transplant is done up to the third day, you may have a reaction, the body reacting against. And if the body rejects whatever content were introduced to it, it may lead to fatality, unfortunately. And so at this point, they check every vital. They are checking the heart rate, they are checking the oxygen level, they are checking the pulses. So like machines are all over monitoring the progress and the response of the body. And now we're told we need to check. They expect within the 7th day after transplant, engraftment shall have occurred. Now, engraftment is a process of these new cells, the new bone marrow cells introduced into the body, getting into the patient's bone marrow and, in layman's language, starting to grow or engrafting themselves, like they get compatible with the recipient's cells. So they have to be compatible and then start growing and replicating. Now, when these introduced cells engraft or compacts with the recipient cells, and remember, the recipient cells were killed. Now, these ones are now superior. They have a chance of growing into the patient. And when they grow, they will start doing exactly what bone marrow do. Production of red blood cells. And now when they will be producing red blood cells, they will be producing healthy blood cells that they are used to produce. And successfully, that is how they'll overcome the recipient's body and take over the functions of producing healthy blood cells that are not sickle. And we thank God for that diverse technology and wisdom He's given humankind to help themselves with on planet Earth. It is a crazy phenomenon. Now, throughout this experience, I learned a lot. I dipped myself into medical studies because I wanted to understand every bit of this process. I wanted to know what is happening. What if this happens, then what next? What are the possible reactions and everything? Now, given all that duration, all that period, taking care of the patient, seeing what the doctors are doing, asking a lot of questions, at some point, I think I told a friend of mine, Elder Moke, I told him, I think now I've become a doctor. Please, you need to give me a honorary doctors because what I've gone through, I've learned so much in medicine, and I felt like, yeah, of which if there was no this situation, I would have never had even an iota of interest in learning. And so this made me learn and know. And with this knowledge, I've been able to probably explain to others going through the same process, let them understand every bit of this process. And like, yes, it made me open my mind. It actually opened my mind and I gained more knowledge and skills, so to say. After transplant, the critical care, we're really observing everything. We still have to check on any fever. It's not any other usual and normal fever. Any other body reactions, the body may react. There could be swelling of the skin or anything. Anything can happen. Like I said before, if you brought genes that do not match and they start fighting each other, what you can have you can have in the body at the end of the day would be close to a zombie. And so we commit ourselves to God and we pray that everything really goes successfully. The post-transplant care is very critical, and here you find at some point the patient is not able to do something. Their body changes. You brought a lot of changes to the body. Now the blood pressure shoots. It's not used to this kind of thing in the body, so it can go up. The normal excretion processes of a human being does not remain normal, and so he can say, "Daddy, I want to do this." Before you reach out to him and help him do, he has done it, and it needs a heart. It really does need a heart. Things break loose, and you really have to be there to support this child. So that happens, and now after transplant we have to stay for 100 days as they monitor before you can travel back out of your country. And mark you, in this room, in this transplant room, is a special room. The room where we are now we got admitted, or we are getting admitted into for the phase of transplant, is a very critical room. This room only has a door without a window. It only has a glass wall for you to at least see outside. No air from outside comes inside, and the air inside is regulated and measured periodically to check that the air inside is fit for the patient. The doctors, when they come, they are in gowns from head to toe. Everyone is putting on protective gear. Remember, in this room, there's a patient with zero level of defense mechanism, zero immunity. And so you cannot afford to have any infection from outside to bring into this room. And for these 28 days you are staying in this room, there is no going out, there is no coming in of anyone. No one can see you, you can't go out to see anyone. Because you interacting with anyone outside compromises their health situation. You don't know what you will gather on your clothes and what you will come and sniff on your clothes, and infection begin. And the room is cleaned like twice a day by highly skilled professionals, highly trained. Whoever is delivering for you food, at times they even deliver by the door, and you take from the door. If they have to come in, they are in full protective gear. And in that ward, everyone, hygiene is top notch. They can't compromise on hygiene. That room cannot be swept. Yes, there is no dust, but it can't be swept because it is believed sweeping will arouse dust, and dust is not needed in any way. And so everything is wiped. Your bedding are changed every other day. You given new things to use every other day. Food when brought is fully covered. Hygiene is just on another level, and the doctors cannot afford to compromise the situation. They have a critical thing they're dealing with, and so prevention is at its level best. You can't go outside, no one can come in. It's like just a single room, but everything happens in that room for 1 whole month. We successfully finish the phase of transplant, admission of 28 days in confinement, medical confinement. And we are released now to go home. Not back to our country, we're released to go back to the apartment. Now, we go back to the apartment, and again, the care is still critical. On diet, you cannot walk any other place, you cannot go any other place. All this time since the chemo started, anytime we are in the apartment, care is key and very critical. I could leave them in the house, I go to the market. But when I come from the market, I cannot interact with him. You don't know what your clothes have gathered on the outside air with infection. So get in straight away, before interacting with him, to the bathroom, change clothes, if possible, bathe or wash hands, then you can now interact. Once you've removed all the clothes you came with from outside and cleaned your hands. Movement is restricted, apartment to hospital, hospital to apartment. You cannot branch anywhere. You cannot go with him anywhere. He'll get infection, and that would be catastrophic. So you are in the house. The people managing the apartments, the cleaners, when they come, they have to sanitize. Ask them to come in masks. Someone may probably just have some flu, and they touch a surface. He touches a surface and is crazy. So even to the caregivers, to the caretakers of the apartments doing the cleaning, they have to toe the line. Of course, there are specific apartments where these are done, so you also have to just remind them on how to take care. You minimize people coming into the house. Yourself, you minimize going to other places that are not really necessary. Cleaning the house, after we back, we have to clean the house like twice, and we try to remove any form of dust, because dust is another good source of infection. So wipe surfaces every other time, now and again. Change beddings regularly, frequently. His clothes, whatever he's eating, still we are on freshly cooked food. Any food that has overstayed past an hour or two cannot be consumed. Anything that goes into the fridge is now for the rest of everyone. He cannot take. And that care goes on. You are going out to hospital, you have all to be in masks. Coming out, that distance between hospital and apartment, everyone is in mask, just to avoid every other contamination of any sort. Now, when we started the chemo processes and he's put on steroids, they had some body changes. Now, with the increased appetite and all that, the body puffed, and he was like so huge. You'd see him, and as an effect of the steroids and of course the increased diet. After transplant, apart from once in a while when the body gets weak, of course he's exhausted from all that process, and of course effects of high blood pressure and all that because of the medication, his body came back to normal, and then his appetite came back to normal once the steroids were stopped now after the transplant. So the body comes back assuming normal body posture, appetite comes back to normal, he's just okay. He's just relating well. He talk and sings and do every other thing just nicely. Now we finish our 28 days of the transplant phase, and we are released to go home. Now we expect to stay at home and be doing weekly tests to monitor progress every other time. So we like go to the hospital twice in a week. On Thursdays you go to do tests. After 3 days the results are out. Then you now go for OPD checkup. They'll review, the doctors will review and advise, change medication, adjust on dosage, remove or add any other that is needed according to those results, how they're progressing. And so I remember we came out, we were discharged on a Monday, must have been a Monday 18th or thereabout. Then we went for a test on Thursday. By Saturday, when we were going back for the review, we find another complication. CMV virus is activated. And CMV after transplant is no joke. It may actually fight engraftment, may fight the growth of those donated cells, may bring it back to zero. And so we are told, here and now, you're getting admitted. Even when you didn't plan for it, they have to act on it like an emergency. They don't want to give chances. And so we get admitted on that day. I remember it is now 23rd of December. And my wife with the young one are supposed to travel back on 26th. So we thought we would see them off. And here we are getting admitted on 23rd. And so that means she would be flying out without us seeing them. So we get into hospital and they take care of that situation. And by the time we getting discharged, my wife had traveled back on 26th and then we come back home. So we are two. We have now remained the two of us. All along, all this time, all these admissions, it was him and myself. And now we go back home after that complication, and we develop a bond. By now, he's really gotten used to me because it's now actually almost the 5th month, literally, the 5th month, and we've been like side by side. He has seen me do everything for him. In situations where he was seeing himself very helpless, he saw me come through for him. He saw me do for him like everything. He saw me uplift him in every situation and in every way. So he grew fond of me. I didn't know that yet by then. But a friend of mine, Edward, told me he will really grow fond of you. And he did. I later come to learn. He really grew fond. And now in him growing fond, I'm in the sitting room, he's in the sitting room. I'm in the bedroom, he's in the bedroom. Like I cannot make a step, he follows every other step. And now that the mother is gone, we are only two, and he's getting better. He needs company. He can't see his brother. He's asking, where is Jacqueline? And I told them we went to the airport, and he now wants to go to the airport. And his mind is fixed, like, let's go back to Kenya. And let's go. Where is mommy? We go back. I tell him that they went back to Kenya. Let's go back to Kenya. Now he's really on pressure. And good enough through all this process, taking care of him was very intensive. It is a whole day affair. It is a whole day work. There is medication to be taken at 6. There is medication to be taken at 8. There is medication to be taken at 10. There's some body care to be done in the morning, body care to be done at noon, medication to be done at 4, body care to be done again in the evening, 7, 8, medication at 8 and at 10. And you cannot afford to do a mistake. And it is strict adherence. At the back of your mind, freshly cooked food. And so in between all this, you have to cook. And in between this, yes, you have clothes to wash because you have to maintain hygiene. You have beddings to clean. You have to wash them, both his and yours, because it's everyone's hygiene to be taken care of. Of course, you have plates to wash after every other meal and all that. And so someone may think that you're just with someone in the house, but it's a lot you're going through. I found still a lot of support from friends even at this time. You find people at home calling you through videos. They want to know how you are doing. Friends from the church, colleagues at work. Yeah, just the thought of people calling you just to know how you are doing and just wishing you well, like it keeps you going. Also, the time, I think my mom used to call every day. My mom could call like 3 times in a day for all the period that we were there. In the morning, she wants to know how you've woken up, how he's doing at noon, before she could sleep. She has a contingent of her prayer warriors who would also consistently pray. And in the church, of course, the prayer warriors, the prayer team, like everyone was really praying for him. And I would say that the intercessory prayers of friends is really critical in one's life. It's good when we pray for each other. It's a good thing. Prayer works. Now, this time when we back home and we're still doing every other critical thing here and there, in this in the time of adjusting, we are now from the almost the fifth. Yeah, we're from the 5th admission, and we're just settling in. All of a sudden, I see he starts to change. He becomes reserved. He is talking less, and his activity is reduced. And I give him food, he no longer wants food. He eats food and he brings it out. And he takes like 5 spoons. So I force him to take like 5 spoons of a meal. He's done. He tells you, nimeshiba. You proceed beyond that, he'll bring it out. And so you're just pampering for him to hold whatever he has taken. Little did I know what this was leading to. His body electrolytes went down. Things that we never test, we never check, we never care, and we never bother. One of those electrolytes is potassium, a very key component in a human body. It is one of the components that had to be regularly monitored I never knew the importance of potassium in the body until that day. And so here I go to hospital. It's Thursday. We have to go do the checkup. And he's just no one. He's just there. You dress him, he's just there. You give him anything, he brings it out. He drinks water, he brings it out. So potassium level had gone down. And I can't tell his behavior. Someone who is just there and just looks at you and talks very less. And I got scared. So we go to hospital and immediately he gets admitted. And I see the rush with which the doctors attend to him. And I get more scared and ask myself, at what brink is this? And on that day, I would say it's one of the longest day I ever saw in my life. By evening, he was not talking at all, and he is not moving his body even an inch. Where he is put to sleep, he can be there for the longest of the hours. He had no energy to do any single thing. And that night, as I sat next to him, as I watched his vitals being checked in his motionless body, with all manner of machines checking his vitals on the legs, on the arms, on the hands, on his chest. And I lost hope. And I knew we will not wake up to see light of the day. As exhausted as I was, I had not slept for like 22 hours. And now deep into the night at 2 a.m., as I stared at him, I told myself, even if I stay awake, I cannot keep him alive. It is only God who could keep him alive. And so a song came into my mind, still done by Capstone. And I sang this song seated on the bed next to him with a very heavy heart. It was like I was actually, I don't know whether I was at the verge of giving up or I had given up. But I told God, I may not be able, and I am not able to take care of him and to keep him alive. And then this song came into my heart. Salama Roni ni salama Roni mwangu. And I sang through all the stanzas of this song. With a very, very heavy heart, I told God, please give me a sign. If the oxygen level goes from 96 upwards, say to 97, I'll go to sleep with a free heart, knowing he will be well. I will wake up and I'll find him alive. But if the oxygen level goes below 96, again to 95, down to 92, as it was oscillating, I will accept your will, knowing it is the last moments. Staring at the machine before me, the reading moved from 96 to 97 and then to 98. I breathed a sigh of relief and comforted myself. God, as you wish. He is your child. And I fell asleep. In the morning, when I woke up, I went to check if he is still there and if he's still alive. I didn't sleep so much. It may have been around 2 hours or so. I woke up and I checked on him. At some point, he started murmuring. He was like singing. I tried to deeply listen. You remember he was so weak and frail, but now he's trying to bring out some song from him. And as I held him, I heard what he was singing, one of his favorite songs.
Mungu si binadamu, ana uongo. Mungu si binadamu, habadiliki. Akikupa ahadi, huitimiza. Mungu wa milele.
My heart shone so bright, and I felt like, yes, we have made it. It was unlike the previous night when I told God, as you may wish, ni salama rohoni mwangu. As I sang the previous night, ni salama rohoni mwangu, and I surrendered all to God. In the morning, here is a young man who was singing, Mungu si binadamu, hana uongo, akikupa ahadi huitimiza. I felt so nice. I felt okay. In around 5 days, we got discharged, and that marked the last admission we had at hospital. We went back home. We had like 2 months stay to complete 100 days from the day of transplant. We did tests every week, maintained the critical care that we could maintain. And on 11th March was the most teary day. It was an emotional moment to be on the ramp, to get into the plane as he was wheeled. He was in a wheelchair. As he was wheeled into the ramp, we were coming back home. 2 days before we traveled, I told him that we will be going home. And he screamed. He was so happy. He was so overjoyed that at the thought that he was going home, he knew he was going to be in a plane. He could not wait to see his brother Jacqueline. He could not wait to see his mommy. And I remember now when we were in the plane, of course, at some point, people get easy and people start walking. And the first time he's seeing people walking from one end to another, I remember him telling me, people are going home, let's go. He thought like the plane is like a vehicle, you reach somewhere and you can alight midway. And I had a difficult time containing him in his seat that people are not going home, people are just going probably to attend to one or two needs in life. He wanted to go home. When we landed home, he was so happy. We were so happy to see everyone back home. We left on 11th September 2023, and we landed back home on 11th March 2024. That was a complete 6 months away from home, and it was by God's grace. Ever since we did the transplant on 22nd of November 2023, up to date, so this is over 7 months, he has never had any symptom or sign of sickle cell. We have never been admitted for any related symptoms of sickle cell. And he is just okay. Some peace we had never known all our lives with him. He has never exhibited any form or symptom of those sickness. And recently when we did the periodic tests that we do, results came out that the donor cells, his brother's cells, were now working in his body 100%. That's still by the grace of God. Now, in all these times I sit down and reflect and just try to check what lesson is this teaching me? Or what exactly is this teaching me in a nutshell? One, I stamped a learning that there's a reason for everything. We may have never known with our mortal minds why our son was sick. But even before the treatment, I used to say, if he is sick, that someday God's name will be glorified, then let it be so. If we had to go through this process, that it either teaches us something or teaches someone else something, then let the perfect will of God be done. We find in the Bible there was someone who was sick, and he was not sick because of any other reason except that the name of God would be glorified at some point. If he was sick that the name of God would be glorified at the end of everything, we subject ourselves to the perfect will of God. And if it was a lesson to tell us something about God, I pray that that lesson doesn't depart away from our minds. And if it was meant to be on someone else, may that lesson, if someone has to learn that indeed God answers prayers, if someone was to learn about the power of intercessory prayer, then let it be so. Let the perfect will of God be done. Because I know he was not sick for no reason. There must have been a reason, and there must have been some lessons to whichever quarters. In another way, this could have been a pillar of strength in Christ. If it was meant to draw us closer to God, if it was meant to draw someone within my close circuit closer to God, the perfect will of God, it may be done.
Throughout the treatment journey in India, we kept getting in touch. One moment you call and you hear Jabin is very upbeat and we could hear him playing. Another moment you call and Oliver Beryl says they are in the ward. So it was a bit of an up and down. But eventually at the end of the day, we thank God. We were very happy to welcome them back when they finally got the treatment. It's been an amazing journey, just being able to see Jambin move from being sick every 1 or 2 weeks to right now when it's been so many months since they left India. He has not been to the hospital for any major sickness. And we say all that is victory to God. We thank God. We can't thank God enough. It's been a lesson even to all of us to cherish life. We can't wait to see the man that Jabin will turn out to be, because God has a destined path for him.